thank you to everyone on this Zoom call. So yeah, I'll give you a little brief introduction and then we'll jump right into the topic, which is uncover your hidden blind spot, the #1 key to up level at work and home. So I can kind of tailor this to business-minded folks like you, because hidden blind spots are that key when you're wanting to up level at work. So yeah, so like Sherry said, I facilitate personal transformation. And how I do this is I guide you through a 3-phase, 90-day transformational process with a focus on you making really big breakthroughs on your personal and professional goals. So a little background on my work experience. So for the past 16 years, I've been working with the mind, the body, and the energetics via therapeutic massage, and then transitioned into personal coaching and transformative guidance. And the 10 years prior, I used my electrical tech degree to basically troubleshoot machines for a semiconductor company. Now on the surface, it may look like those two careers are completely different, but they do have something in common. So the first 10 years, I was troubleshooting issues in machines. And then the past 16 years, I have been troubleshooting issues in the mind and body. So essentially, I've been working with electrical energy, both in electrical machines and in electrical humans' minds and body for pretty much a total of 26 years. So to me, really everything is energy, and all of my work uses energetic principles. So it's the energetics underneath what's actually going on at the surface. So I want to talk about you. Enough about me, right? So before I get into it, I really don't consider myself a teacher. I'm more of a facilitator. So it's a little bit challenging to be just talking to the computer screen when actually I just want to like get my hands in there and start working. But because really where I shine is when I'm interacting with you. So feedback is everything when it comes to this kind of work. So I'm going to share some information to give you some context, and then I would love to have a discussion with you. So as I talk for the next few minutes, you can just jot down some questions you have, or if you have, real life situations that have come up for you, whether, during this COVID-19 or, how it's affected your business or your personal life. And if any of those questions or comments, if you want to jot those down and then we can talk about them later, I would love to do that. So I'm going to get into some notes here because I can go on a tangent and I can easily get off track. So I'm going to get my notes lined up here. All right, so today's topic, uncover your hidden blind spot, the #1 key to up level at work and home. So first of all, what is a blind spot? And why would you care about uncovering your hidden blind spot? So a blind spot is basically what you're not seeing, or what you cannot perceive, or what you're not aware of. So blind spots are those places where we lack clarity or insight or awareness of ourselves. It's kind of like, how you can see things in other people, but it's really hard to see things in yourself. That's what a blind spot is. And sometimes you can become rigid and locked into those patterned areas, and you can feel stuck because you're in these repetitive loops, these repetitive patterns. And the blind spots could be undermining your business goals, or even the blind spots may be causing disconnection in your relationships, at work or at home, or, with people on the street. It's something that it's hard. It's hard because we can't really see those blind spots. And it's harder because they're invisible. So we all know what a blind spot is in our car, right? It's that area where a person's visual view is obstructed. Well, we also have blind spots in our awareness or our perception. But again, that tricky thing with perception is the hidden blind spots, they're invisible. We physically cannot see them with our eyes. And we only know they are there because they are causing us pain in some way. So, for example, we might be, there's so many examples that I can think of where we can feel where a blind spot is, but we don't really know where it is. Like if we keep sabotaging our success in business, or we keep getting into those challenging relationship dynamics, but we don't really know why. Whereas if you're in a car and you run into something that was in your blind spot, you will know right away because there will be damage to your car. And it's usually super expensive to fix, even those little dings, right? It really hits you where it counts. So you have more of a physical awareness about how that blind spot affected the damage of your car. But when it comes to the perception blind spots, it's a little more challenging because you don't really know why or what's happening, but you know that there's just something that's not working correctly, or how you'd like, or you're not meeting your goals, right? So you don't know what you don't know. And it's even trickier when you're trying to fix something that you can't see. So there's really good news. And this is really what is on the second part of the topic, which is the number one key to uncover your blind spots. And that's what it is this. The good news is there is a valuable key you have that you can find these blind spots and get unstuck, like right now. And that key is working with your triggers. So triggers, right? Have you heard that word? Have you experienced it? I know I have. So your triggers are the key to help you break through those rigid patterns. So what are triggers? Well, triggers are any external stimulus that gives rise to discomfort inside of you. Triggers are those annoyances that seem to come out of nowhere, but they definitely get your attention, right? Triggers are really the ultimate pattern interrupt. And if used well, they can help you expose your blind spots. Even if you don't know what your blind spots are, you definitely know what pushes your buttons or what bothers you, right? You know what those things are. And you might experience them sometimes even on a daily basis with certain people or certain events that are playing on the news or whatever it is. Something pushes your buttons, right? So let's recap. So a blind spot is an obstruction that blocks your perception. And then a trigger is an external stimulus that gets your attention to something hidden in your blind spot. So triggers don't feel good, but They can help you by bringing attention to what you need to be aware of to reveal your blind spot. So you've gone through significant changes in the last few weeks, right? You've been pushed. You've been thrown out of your comfort zone. You've had to deal with so much. All of us have in different ways, depending on how we've created our lives, how we've set up our lives. Those obstacles, maybe that we didn't think were there, now all of a sudden in our face. I mean, we've had to deal with so much. And you've probably been triggered at least a few times. So this COVID-19 pandemic has really disrupted the status quo of our everyday lives, which has exposed hidden blind spots in the way we work, in the way we live, and the way we relate to each other. I mean, it's challenging for me. I love the outdoors. I love nature, and I've, walked on the green belt, and, normally it's like, hey, how's it going? Nice day. And still some people do, but then there's also this hesitation and this withdrawal. And so for people like myself that just love people, it's like, I want to hug everyone and I can't. So that's, for me, that's just one of the small challenges. I have some other challenges, but I get it. I'm right there with you. So what challenges have you had? And have you noticed triggers exposing any kind of blind spots for you in your life? And I for right now, I want to take a pause, because I don't want to brush over something that's really important. And that is those that are particularly vulnerable to the energetic feelings of shame or guilt. When I use the word trigger, I mean, just the word can maybe even take a little zing to your nervous system. Like, oh, what does she mean? Or blind spots, like, am I going to get exposed here? Like, is this, I feel vulnerable, right? Well, I totally get it, because the things that are underneath the surface are usually the things that we kind of keep private, and we defend against anything that could expose that. And so I totally get it. It's vulnerable to even share, what challenges you have. But if you can, right in this moment, just take a moment and take a breath. And take a breath in through your nose and out your mouth. And just get really present. Right here, right now. Because it's easy to check out and, find yourself triggered by the past, or even embarrassments or feelings of being exposed. It's so important, and that's why I do this work, because there's a place of, I'll just say it, there's a place of sacredness when you're walking somebody through triggering experiences for them that maybe have, were developed from something in the past that is re-emerging. And I'm watching with people around me in my practice that the past experience of feeling vulnerable has come up for a lot of people, whether it has to do with their health or their finances or the way that they do their life. It's really bumping up against the status quo, this whole experience that we're in. So again, I really want to open up and have an open discussion So again, I want to pose this question, and then I'm gonna close my mouth down, and I'd love to listen to you. Is what challenges have you had recently, and have you noticed triggers exposing any blind spots for you in your life? Because sometimes, like I said, this is, and please feel free to jump in when I'm talking. If you do have something, if something pops in. But this is what's really interesting, is that because of the invisible nature of blind spots, it's almost hard to talk about it, because we feel a lot of things in our bodies. We have body sensations. We know when something feels like there's a gut punch, or we're getting a lot of pressure in our head, but we don't know where that's coming from. Mm-hmm. So when we're trying to identify, right now where our blind spots are, it's interesting because you talked about uncertainty. You brought up the word uncertainty. And uncertainty for us humans is like, we are always strategizing to figure out a way to mitigate risk and to make it so that we have the right answer and we're not going to lose anything, right? So there's this, and that's kind of this underlining theme, that is very instinctual, because we want to survive. And so uncertainty is always kind of in right in the forefront of our mind. So a good area to look where your blind spots are hiding is where you try to be certain. And the certainty is an indicator of, I want to be certain. So for example, if you feel threatened, if your status quo is threatened, you're going to grasp for something, whatever that is. If you're physically threatened, you're sliding down a shale rocks side of a mountain, you're going to try to grab onto that big tree or that big whatever to gain certainty that you're not going to die, right? So in things that we're experiencing right now, which is this invisible threat that is in the form of this virus, we're trying to grasp for things that we know. And one of the places that you can identify where your hidden blind spots are is to look at your strengths. And I know this is a weird place to start, but I like to start with strengths, because whatever you're good at is also what you can kind of overcompensate with, and it can be used kind of against you. So like one of my strengths is I want to find the truth, right? So I'm a truth teller. I tell the truth. And at the same time, at certain times, it's not good to tell the truth because it can actually hurt people, right? So there's a delicate balance. So if I'm trying to find certainty in this very uncertain, I'm going to go seek the truth. I'm going to be like looking for the truth. Where's the truth? Who done it? All that stuff. And it's a mind mess because it's a false sense of security, even though in my everyday life, to be open and truthful and be in alignment with what I say and what I do is it feels so good, and it just feels like breathing for me. It can also be the thing I try to grasp onto when I'm uncertain. So my blind spots are hidden in me trying to find truth, because sometimes that's just a false sense of security. Because even if you have the truth of whatever, the virus is still there, So I like to start with strengths. Some people are overachievers. Some people are good listeners. Some people are peacekeepers. Some people have all the answers. Some people are super funny. Some are the logical one, the successful one. Some people are just super intelligent. And so with those strengths, also on the underbelly of those strengths are something that when you get scared, when you get frightened, when you get vulnerable, you'll kind of grasp for those strengths. There's another area that is interesting for you to identify where the blind spot is hiding. And that's in the rewards program that we have in our being. Those strategic habits that we use to get some kind of payoff or reward, like getting approval or being liked or getting recognized or, getting attention or getting your way. There's so many ways that you can find your blind spots. And, on some level, like you see it with kids, sometimes they look like they're kind of being manipulative, but then you can see right through them. But the thing is then they age, and those things that got them what they wanted actually get them success, and it's like, whoa, so they're getting rewarded, for these things that are actually strategic habits. And so and everything that I share, I don't see like a right and a wrong. I see that just being able to kind of look at all the nuances, and when we are going into our blind spot of that reward program. So for example, like I appreciate being in relationship with people, and it feels good when somebody lights up and they smile and you smile at them, and that to me is a reward. It's like, oh my gosh, we just made a connection. And I think there are these then there's also these ways where I might be really mad, and then I might be smiling when I'm mad, and it's a disconnect in my body. Like I'm actually angry. I'm not happy that you just said that. You know what I mean? So it's like there's this, even now, like it's hard for me not to smile. It's hard for me to not find that joy. But then sometimes it can make me be a little naive maybe, or it can, I can like lose sight of what's actually at hand because I'm wanting to see the best, or I'm wanting to see the highest, most expansive view of this person. But then it's like, darn it, they did it again, So those are our blind spots where we get rewards and these strategic habits where you get some kind of payoff. The other thing, so we talked about strengths, rewards. The one area you can find your blind spots, and this is a really, again, something that it'd be hard to talk about in business, but it happens in business all the time, which is shame. People get embarrassed, and sometimes people, when they, directors, when they talk to maybe an employee, they might say something like, well, you should have known, you should have known. And then all of a sudden that person is triggered, and they're like, get flushed with this energy. And shame is not an emotion. It's a flush of energy. It's a rush of extreme, like hot flash, if you will, or hot or cold sweats. Something happens in the body, a body sensation. And it's a feeling of being vulnerable and fully exposed. So perhaps if you look at that example, perhaps the director never even said you should have done something, but that's what the person heard. And actually the director said, I would have liked it done this way. So it was like a positive critique, but maybe it was heard in a way that was misunderstood, right? So shame is one of the best ways to find where you feel shame. And when you get triggered with shame is where your blind spots are. Like, oh, I can't stand feeling stupid. That's like in my blind spot. You know, I really take pride in being an A student. I love being, at the head of the class, So when my director just said, you, whatever, all I hear is I did something wrong. I made a mistake and I'm not an A student anymore. Right? So that could be in the blind spot. And then what I might do is overcompensate. I may, begin to make excuses, or I may say, well, and try to overcorrect the issue instead of just taking responsibility for it. Like, okay, yeah, you know what? If I really look at it, maybe I could have done something different. So I mean, and so shame is huge when you're identifying where your blind spots are hiding. So look at your strengths, look at your own internal reward program, and then look at where shame shows up in your life. How does that sit with, like, just even, how are you all feeling right now? Because this is all of a sudden, it's like I felt as soon as I even use the word shame, it's like, like everything just goes. We're seeing a lot of the strengths, the rewards, the shame playing out with this COVID-19. Some people are really pulling their strength up to get through this. Some people are overcompensating, doing things too quick, too fast. It's not the right time, but they're like, but this is the way I've always done it. I push through, I bulldoze through anything. I can accomplish anything, right? So it's really interesting how this is showing up. And then also, we're in a social dynamic. We're, not wanting to hurt our neighbors' feelings if we go out without a mask, or, so there's a lot of challenges even with the social aspect of this. And let's, call it what it is. There's a lot of mud flinging between people of what's right and what's wrong. And a lot of shame is being thrown and being used as a way to, get your point across. And so these are all blind spots that are being exposed in the human collective, really, in how we treat one another, how we see one another. So it's really, really interesting to just kind of, from my point of view, as a transformation guide, it's like, oh my gosh, I used to be doing this like in my little, room with one other person, and now I'm seeing it like out on the whole global scale. It's just amazing. It's like we're all going through this transformation process. It's a phenomenal thing we're going through. It's funny. So back in the day, I was only doing deep tissue massage therapy in my practice. And I had what's called this modality that I used. It was called trigger point therapy. And basically, it's an effective technique where you release a tight muscle with trigger point therapy. So a trigger point in the physical body is when there's a knot in the muscle. And when you put pressure on that bump, it gives rise to pain because it's basically hypersensitive to the touch. And the cool thing is if you put sustained pressure on it for at least 30 to 60 seconds, the muscle will naturally release and let go. But if the person pulls away or they fight it and they don't allow the process to happen, the trigger point will basically remain or get worse. So emotional triggers are really similar. And if you don't deal with your triggers and let the tension go, they will continue to cause you to be hypersensitive to external stimulus. So you won't even know, like, things will be totally normal, a trigger will happen, and all of a sudden you get this inflamed response, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is interesting. This is actually, now when I think back, when Suzanne was talking, when I get triggered, this is exposing a blind spot. And that trigger response is like a defense response. And now you can see that your blind spots are not to be seen as weaknesses, but as kind of behaviors or things that get in the way of fully using your strengths. I mean, can you imagine if you walked around on this planet and you didn't get triggered by people or ideas or belief systems or information? You didn't get triggered. You just were like, wow, that's an interesting perspective. Interesting. Wow. You know, can you imagine just walking around with like that? Like your stress level would go down. You know, think about employees that work together. You know, like, wouldn't it be great if you could just share with somebody a feedback or critique on their project and the other person wouldn't go home and cry? It's like, that would be awesome, right? And I don't really agree with the you spot it, you got it, because sometimes that's actually not true. Like, where somebody will say, well, if you spot something and you judge something in someone else, it means that it's in you. If I'm in a store and I see a child like just get whacked across the face because maybe the child was crying, not loud, but they were crying. Obviously they just got abuse, right? Like, that was it. I watched the whole thing. I'm going to get triggered, and my mama bear, even though I don't have children, my mama bear inside of me is going, whoa, 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 whoa. What did I just witness? Right? So is that I'm an abuser? No. But collectively, as a human being, that like, a lot of people would be triggered by that. So sometimes it is that you spot it, you got it, but sometimes a trigger is really effective to put you into a state of action to do something that is in the right amount of intensity at the right time with the right person, or get the authorities or what have you, right? So sometimes a trigger is not a negative thing. It's something, and that's where I use my triggers wisely, is when it fires something up in me that is important for me to address. Now, if I get triggered and I'm ruminating for like 10 days because somebody said something, I got issues. It's me, and I'm gonna go a little deep on that one, because something is off within me, and I have not resolved some structure, some architecture inside my being that needs to be dismantled, needs to be opened up, needs to be released, needs to have that trigger point therapy, so that knot can be expressed and released and resolved. Let's do this. There's 3 things you can do to begin to expose your blind spots, and this will show you. I'm going to pull up my notes again. So this will help you to let down your triggered defenses. So there's 3 things that I do on a regular basis. There's three things. 1, track and question your triggers, and I'll go into it. Number 2, ask for honest feedback. And then 3, shame-free listening. So track and question your triggers. This is really fun, because I think one of my one of my probably lives that I could have expressed in this life was to be a private detector. Like, I could have been a really good private detector for sure. And I didn't express it, but I think I do it with myself and as I'm helping others. And this is track and question your triggers. So write down what the trigger symptoms are, you know, what the symptoms are, like where you feel the trigger in your body, or what that person said that pissed you off, or, you know, what you heard and it just doesn't settle well. You know, what are the symptoms? What are the symptoms that you can see on kind of the surface? And then what the challenges are, or what your frustrations are. Write all that stuff down. Like, what are you challenged with? What are the frustrations? What's that like? Oh, if I could do this, then I wouldn't be triggered anymore. So be your own detective and take an objective approach. And this is what I like about my career at Micron, is that 10 years, you know, I did a lot of objective data collecting, or, you know, you would deduce deduce down, you know, how to troubleshoot a problem. And by doing it, it was really cool because I was dealing with a machine. So the machine didn't have feelings. You know, with humans, it's a little different. But if you can take the same objective approach to yourself and not, you know, judge yourself, and take a positive approach without that harsh judgment. Because here's the trick. How do I say this? How the blind spot got developed in the first place and pushed into the shadows of your mind and your body was probably through someone else judging you or shaming you. So during this process of tracking and questioning your triggers, the last thing you want to do is judge yourself or shame yourself or say, oh, I should have done it this way, or I should have done it that way, because that's just going to push the trigger even deeper into your being. So you have to be your own friend with this part, okay? So that's the track and question your triggers. Then asking for honest feedback. Ask others, like people you trust, who will be honest. And this is the important thing. You have to pick people who have your best interest. So these people that have your best interest, sometimes they're not the people that are going to give you like the sugar-coated answer, because they actually want to see you grow. They want to see you, you know, move past your own limitations. So when you're asking for honest feedback, you're not asking for what you want to hear, because this is going to help you get triggered in the moment, because you're going to feel uncomfortable, because they're going to be sharing something with you that rises some discomfort, you know, because they might say something. So this is what's really important for your responsibility to do, which is you need to be grateful for that help. So get in the habit of thanking them, even if what they share is uncomfortable to hear. So just keep reminding them, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for telling me this, because these are the things that I can't see. And, you know, it's better for me to practice here at home. Like Nathan and I do this all the time, because we just have that kind of a relationship where we really, really trust each other. And we know that we can speak honestly with each other, because then we can play at home with these uncomfortable things and vent and you know, it's safe, right, to do it there. Because then when we go out in the world and we're dealing with somebody that is, you know, affecting us negatively, we won't have to play that out there. We can play it out with that discomfort at home. So asking for honest feedback. Then the third thing, and these are things that you can do to expose your blind spots and how to let your triggered defenses let them down, which is this third thing, which is shame-free listening. So this is so interesting. Um, so for me, I didn't feel a lot of shame growing up, but I felt a lot of guilt. Like for some reason, I always felt guilty for doing something wrong, but I didn't do anything wrong. So I kind of had the cousin of shame, which was guilt. And so when I listen, sometimes what happened for me before I did this shame-free listening, I would go into this, oh, I feel bad. I feel guilty. Like, I don't know why, it just was like that. So I had to get over that. But so shame-free listening is this: be willing to receive feedback without shame. And notice when you get a flush of energy or a flush of, oh, I feel guilty, or I feel like I did something wrong. And in that moment, what I always do is I breathe. Because as soon as you feel shame, you forget to breathe. And it's like, oh God, I'm going to go small. I'm going to try to make my body as small as I can, and no one will see me, right? That's kind of like the energetic thing that happens when you get embarrassed or you feel exposed. So instead, I open up my heart. So when I'm listening, I open my heart, and I do this like a lot. Open my heart, I breathe. And if somebody's talking to me and maybe they have a bone to pick with me, I listen, and I realize no shame. They have something significant to say. Okay, maybe I don't agree with it, but they are saying it, so it's important for them. Okay. So it's like this, all of a sudden the channel opens up to my listening so that I don't clamp down and defend against what is happening, such that then I'm in for a fight. So breathing, really allowing the embarrassment or the shame to run through your body without plugging it up by contracting your body or trying to make yourself small. That never works. So this is like mastery level ninja tricks to being an emotionally intelligent person, whether you're at work, whether you're at home. The shame-free listening, the honest feedback, getting honest feedback, and then tracking and questioning your triggers is really, it's high-level work, and it's completely rewarding. It's humbled me. It's created a sense of compassion for myself and others. It's given me the freedom, I think, in my voice even, to be able to speak where I'm in alignment with my values and how I feel and what I want to share. It's like it's this whole process, almost like it's like it declogs all of your energy in your body so that you can be a pure expression of who you really are. So I know that, like you said, Sherry, you normally don't have these kinds of talks, but I think it's really applicable to the business world as well as our everyday life. And this is really all about emotional intelligence. And, in the business world, we do talk a lot about emotional intelligence and how to be emotionally intelligent. And this right here, being able to be open and honest about uncovering your blind spots and working with your own triggers is, I think, the number one way to have emotional intelligence.